What's up, YouTube? Christo here, back with another vinyl collection video. This time I'm going to be looking at two great but polar artists. Be sure to check out videos I just did of Smog. I did a 7 inches video, and I did a 12 inches EPs, LPs video as well. Separately, so check those two out. But for now, I've got two really great artists that I love a lot. Very different sounds. First one, His Hero Is Gone, and the other, Destroyer. Kind of a very well-produced pop rock orchestral Canadian band, but I'll get to them second. His Hero Is Gone, really cool backstory with me. They're one of the bands that way back in the late 90s, there was a CBC radio show called Brave New Waves. They would kind of do like different spotlights I can't remember if it was every week or every month. They would have a different genre, and they'd play these different artists that fit into these genres. So they would do like an electronic genre, and then they do like a metal genre, and then they do like industrial, and then they do like ambient and stuff like that. And I actually ended up finding a few bands through that radio show that ended up being like really important to me in my music kind of life or career, whatever you want to call it. And one of them was His Hero Is Gone. They just blew me away. Like in the late 90s, when kind of alternative was big and industrial was kind of big, I was into heavy music, but a lot of heavy music just kind of bored me. Deftones, Korn, Slipknot, and stuff like that. I admit I was kind of into all three of them, but I just lost interest in them very, very quickly. It just seemed too boring, generic, whatever. And then I heard His Hero Is Gone, and they just, changed everything for me. Unfortunately, they've broken up, long ago. I think even before I heard them, they were already broken up. And they've only released a couple of records, and they're all, doing different things musically, or have changed bands numerous times or whatever. Kind of cool, I actually got in touch with Prank Records, who released most of their albums, asking if they had any in stock, because I really wanted to get them. And I corresponded a few times with someone who turned out to be the owner of Prank Records, which was really cool. But he said they've gone elsewhere and they don't have rights to repress any of their records or anything anymore. Which is too bad, because, I think this band would really appeal to a lot more people if they knew them. But that's their whole style. They were, anti-capitalist, anti-consumerist, which I don't want to get into. Not talking about politics or whatever here, but yeah, they're very politically motivated. They talk about poverty and government corruption, anarchy, things like that. And apparently the name His Hero Is Gone is a reference to Martin Luther King being assassinated. They're from Nashville, I believe. They're from somewhere in the South. They're from like the same place where Martin Luther King was assassinated. So that's kind of like, this tribute to, just politics and social justice and things like that. Whatever, I'm not affiliated with them politically, whether I agree, disagree, whatever. Their music is amazing, and that's all I care about. So first record, The Dead of Night in 8 movements, 8-track EP, 7-inch, really great. This is on colored vinyl. They did actually do a few records with colored pressings, but a lot of them are quite rare, hard to find now. I think I only have one on colored vinyl. This is great. I'm not even going to get into naming the tracks, because I'm just going to name everything on here. Their songs are really short, really heavy, really fast. So I think this has got 8 tracks. I think it's like 15 minutes, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, not much. Really great record. I think a lot of the songs appeared on another record, but I'll get to that later. Fool's Gold. This is the black. I believe this is a much more accessible version. The black on black cover. Kind of hard to see there with my crappy camera, but yeah. Black vinyl with the cardboard insert. Again, really good, and I'm not even going to bother listing tracks because they're short and they're good and they're easy to listen to. Yeah, let's do this. I believe this is often regarded as their greatest record, although they didn't release many. A lot of people hold this in very high esteem. Monument to Thieves, I believe this is their first album as well. And yeah, wow, what a great record. Just so heavy, fast, and the cool thing with them that I think really separates them from, you know, metal or punk or whatever genre, crust punk, metalcore, is they are just supremely talented. They're tight. They have like surgical precision. Such an awesome band. This is such a great record. This one, definitely one of their more expensive to pick up. I had to pay a little bit more than I wanted, but I haven't seen one for that price since I got it, so I'm really happy to have it. 15 Counts of Arson. This is a really great starter record. I think it's a little more accessible, although it hasn't been pressed, you know, in forever. But it's still, it's for some reason pretty easy to find and pretty cheap. Not saying you're going to walk into like HMV and pick it up, but you can get this for cheaper than the other 12-inch records. And again, I'm not even going to bother getting into tracks because there's just so many that are so good. And some of them are like 30 seconds or whatever. But this is a really, really solid record. I think a really good place to get into His Hero Is Gone. And what's this one? Ah, yes, The Plot Sickens. I believe this is a compilation. I'm quite sure there are tracks from this that are on 7 inches and whatnot. I have all of these on MP3, so to be honest, I do rarely listen to the actual records, which I know it's not audiophile quality listening to MP3s, but I don't know, I like to keep these preserved. They're rare, and I don't want to wear them out or scratch them when I can listen to my MP3s. Definitely, Saturday night, if I've got a couple beers in me, I love to go up and listen to this. Loud, but not too loud to wake up the kids or anything, but great records, absolutely amazing band, totally worth checking out. Okay, so before the sun goes down, let's get into Destroyer. Destroyer is Dan from the New Pornographers. I don't know if I can really say side project because Destroyer's gone on forever, but it's another project. I think he's actually more famous for being in Destroyer than the New Pornographers. No, I actually had a really cool moment. I got to see Destroyer live in Hamilton. I don't know when it was. It was 2016, maybe September, October-ish. Yeah, maybe October, November, actually, whatever. But it was really cool. And Dan came out from backstage to watch the opening act, and he literally stood shoulder to shoulder with me. It was really cool because I was on the side of the stage and everyone else was crowded out in front, and he walked out and everybody noticed him, and he literally just stood up and stood like there next to me, and everybody was like, "Oh, it's Dan, it's Dan, it's Dan." And I was literally standing next to him. I almost wanted to go like, "Oh, I love your music," but I don't think he's that kind of guy. So I was like, you know what, I'm just going to kind of cherish the moment and, you know, think about how cool it is that I'm standing next to Dan and, you know, we're both just standing here sipping beer. Anyways, Kaput, probably their most famous, or at least highest critiqued, you know, the most favorable reviews for this album. And I agree, I think this is really good. I think this definitely kind of set the standard for what New Destroyer is. There's not really anything on this that I think is a poor track. It's so well produced. It sounds amazing. There's so much more depth to it, and the music and the instruments just pop off the vinyl so much more than earlier albums that seem a bit flat. He definitely has more of an orchestral sound with here that I think is phenomenal, that I don't really find to be as, I don't know, as predominant in earlier albums, although they are kind of like a, you know, multi-instrumental band or whatever. But yeah, I think this kind of like brought Destroyer into what they are now, and I think it was a really great move. One of the few bands I think sound better hi-fi than lo-fi for sure. Now, this though is what kind of got me into Destroyer this night. And I was definitely late to the game on Destroyer and this album in general. I didn't really know about them until maybe 6 or 7 years ago, like a decade before they, more than a decade before they had released anything or he had released anything. And the self-titled track, This Night, I loved it. It's so great. I still really enjoy it, but when I listen to this, compared to this, I do find this to be a little bit more difficult to listen to. Like I said, I think Destroyer just sounds so much better hi-fi, like on Kaput rather than on This Night. Still a really great record, but I think Kaput still outdoes it. Kind of lucked out and picked this up for a really cheap price locally. This is the split album, City of Daughters and Thief, I believe it is. Thief, yeah. This is early. I don't remember the years, to be honest, but this is early Destroyer, and I can't really say I'm that much into it. It's even more lo-fi than this. It's okay. To be honest, I've only listened to City of Daughters once full through, and I've only listened to the first side of Thief. I wasn't really feeling it. It didn't come with an MP3 card either, so I can't even listen to it, you know, kind of when I'm out and about. So I'll definitely give this another listening to, but for sure I'd say this isn't really my era of Destroyer, to be honest. But it is still pretty cool, and apparently this is quite rare, so I was pretty lucky to pick this up for like retail, you know, in the wild, in a actual brick and mortar record store, so that's kind of cool, but just not overly feeling that record, to be honest. This though, really enjoy this. Poison Season, the follow-up to Kaput, which is kind of interesting because this I found in cutout bins so many times. It's on Amazon for really cheap, or was at least. I just don't think it lived up to what Kaput did, but I think if you kind of approach this without that kind of not living up to mentality, I think it's really good. I like this album a lot. There's really nothing on here I think is poor. The first track's a little boring. It's like an instrumental version of one of the later tracks. I'm kind of embarrassing myself by not knowing, but Times Square, Poison Season 1, that's it. And I do have a not particularly rare but quite nice looking clear vinyl. It is a double disc set as well. Very, very good record. If you can find this cut out and you enjoyed Kaput, I highly recommend this. I think this is pretty underrated. Just because it wasn't quite what Kaput was, it doesn't really get talked about much, but I lucked out because I picked this up for like 16 bucks Canadian, which is pretty good. So anyway, there you go. Two great bands with totally different sounds, but you know, that's what I love about music. There's, you know, kind of just no end to what you're going to find and what you're going to be into. So thanks so much for watching, everyone. Stay tuned for some more vinyl videos. I'll definitely have some up in the near future.